My daughter Piper looked straight at the detective and said, "Dad, should I tell them where you and Uncle Ryan buried him? You sent me the location by accident." The room went completely silent. My ex-husband Trevor's face turned white as paper. That's when I knew my 6-year-old son Colby was never coming home. But let me back up, because you need to understand who we were before that moment shattered everything. I'm Melinda, and just 3 days ago, I was a regular mom living a regular life in suburban Kansas City. I worked 12-hour shifts as a pediatric nurse at Children's Mercy Hospital, came home to help with homework, and made dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets for dinner, because that's all Colby would eat. My whole world revolved around 2 kids who couldn't be more different from each other. Colby was 6 years old and pure energy. He had this wild sandy hair that stuck up no matter how much I tried to smooth it down, and gap between his front teeth that made his smile even more adorable. Every morning he'd burst into my room at dawn wearing his favorite green dinosaur pajamas, ready to tell me about whatever dream he'd had. "Mom, I was riding a T-Rex and we went to McDonald's," he'd announce, bouncing on my bed. He played soccer on Saturdays, though he spent more time picking dandelions on the field than chasing the ball. His backpack was covered in Iron Man stickers, his shoes lit up when he walked, and he still believed that chocolate milk came from brown cows. Piper was 8 going on 30. Where Colby was chaos, she was calm. She had my dark hair and her father's sharp green eyes that noticed everything. Too much sometimes. She read chapter books meant for middle schoolers, organized her stuffed animals by size and color, and kept a journal I pretended not to know about hidden under her mattress. She was the kind of kid who reminded me to sign permission slips and helped Colby tie his shoes without being asked. Teachers called her mature for her age, which sounds like a compliment until you realize it means she's carrying weight she shouldn't have to. Then there was Trevor, my ex-husband. We'd been divorced for 2 years, but you'd think he was the victim of the century the way he told it. He was 36, worked as a real estate agent, and had this way of charming everyone he met. Tall, athletic build, perfect smile he'd had whitened twice since our divorce. He drove a BMW he couldn't afford and lived in a house that was all show and no substance, just like him. During our marriage, I'd loved his confidence. After our marriage, I recognized it as narcissism. He'd remarried 6 months after our divorce was final. Jenna was 24, worked as a receptionist at his real estate office, and posted inspirational quotes on Instagram between selfies at the gym. She wasn't mean to my kids, just indifferent, more interested in being a wife than a stepmother. She'd smile and wave from the passenger seat during pickups, but never got out of the car. And then there was Ryan, Trevor's younger brother, 32 years old and still finding himself, according to Trevor. Lost another job, according to everyone else. He'd moved in with Trevor and Jenna 3 months ago, supposedly temporarily, but his temporary stays had a way of becoming permanent. Ryan was shorter than Trevor, stockier, with the same green eyes but none of the charm. He drank too much at family gatherings, laughed too loud at his own jokes, and had this way of looking at people that made them uncomfortable. Even before everything happened, Piper didn't like being around him. "Uncle Ryan stares at me weird," she'd told me once after a weekend at Trevor's. "Weird how?" I'd asked. "Just weird, like he's thinking mean thoughts." I should have paid more attention to that. I should have paid attention to a lot of things. But 3 days ago, when I kissed Colby goodbye on that Friday afternoon, I was just thinking about the overtime shift I'd picked up for Saturday. I needed the money because Trevor was 2 months behind on child support again, though he'd somehow managed to buy himself a new watch. Colby was excited about his weekend with Dad because Trevor had promised to take him to the indoor trampoline park. Piper was staying with me, claiming she had too much homework, though I suspected she just didn't want to watch Jenna take selfies all weekend. If I'd known that would be the last time I'd see my son alive, I would have held him longer. I would have memorized the way he smelled like peanut butter and apple juice. I would have told him I loved him one more time. But I didn't know. I just waved from the porch as Trevor's BMW pulled away, Colby's little hand pressed against the back window, waving until they turned the corner. Life after divorce wasn't perfect, but we'd found our rhythm. Every other weekend followed the same pattern. Thursday night, I'd wash Colby's favorite Spider-Man shirt because he always wanted to wear it to Dad's house. Friday morning, I'd pack his dinosaur backpack with his inhaler, his blankie that we pretended wasn't a blankie anymore, and the emergency phone I'd bought him even though Trevor said 6 was too young. Friday afternoon, Trevor would honk from the driveway, and Colby would race out the door like he was heading to Disney World. That Friday morning, October 13th, started like any other. Colby was sitting at the kitchen table, sorting his Lucky Charms to eat all the marshmallows first. Piper was reading a book about ancient Egypt while eating toast with exactly 1 tablespoon of strawberry jam, measured with an actual measuring spoon, because that's how particular she was. "Mom, why does Colby have to go to Dad's house?" Piper asked suddenly, not looking up from her book. "Because the judge said so, sweetie. It's just 2 days." "But why does the judge get to decide? The judge doesn't know Dad." I poured myself another cup of coffee, buying time. "That's how custody works, honey. Your dad loves you both and deserves to spend time with you." Piper finally looked up, her green eyes serious. "Colby said Uncle Ryan yelled at him last time, called him a crybaby because he missed you." My stomach tightened. "When did Colby tell you this?" "Wednesday night. He came into my room and asked if he could sleep in my bed. He said Uncle Ryan scares him." I sat down beside her, choosing my words carefully. "Did Colby tell Dad about this?" "Dad was there when it happened. He laughed." Before I could respond, Colby bounced into the kitchen wearing his Iron Man sneakers and the Spider-Man shirt I'd washed. "Mom, look! I can tie my shoes by myself now." He demonstrated with the focused determination only a 6-year-old could muster, his tongue poking out slightly as he worked. "That's amazing, buddy." I knelt down to double-check his work, fixing the loose loops without letting him know. Trevor and I had been married for 8 years before everything fell apart. The funny thing about falling out of love is that it happens slowly, then all at once. One day you're planning family vacations. The next you're sleeping in separate rooms and arguing about who forgot to pay the water bill. The final straw came when I found out about his affair with a client. Not Jenna. Someone before her. He'd begged for another chance, swore it meant nothing. But trust is like a mirror. Once it's broken, you can piece it back together, but you'll always see the cracks. The custody arrangement was standard but painful. I had primary custody. Trevor got every other weekend and Wednesday dinners. He'd fought for 50-50 custody, not because he wanted more time with the kids, but because it would lower his child support payments. The judge saw through it, thankfully. Trevor played the devoted father in court, but in reality, he often pawned the kids off on Jenna or Ryan while he showed houses or went golfing. At 3:30 that afternoon, I was braiding Piper's hair when we heard the familiar honk. Trevor never came to the door anymore. Said it was too awkward, though I suspected he just didn't want to risk me asking about the overdue child support. Colby grabbed his backpack and started for the door, then stopped and ran back to me. "Mom, what if I get scared at night? You call me on your phone, remember, anytime you need me." "But what if Dad takes my phone away like last time?" "Then you tell him you need to call me, and if he won't let you, you ask Jenna, or you remember that Sunday will come fast, okay?" He nodded solemnly, gave me one more hug, and headed out. I watched from the window as he climbed into the back seat of Trevor's BMW. Ryan was in the passenger seat, already looking at his phone. Jenna must have stayed home. Trevor never looked toward the house, just pulled away the moment Colby's door closed. Piper stood beside me at the window. "I don't trust Uncle Ryan," she whispered. "Why, honey? Besides, what you told me this morning." She shrugged, then said something that would haunt me forever. "He looks at Colby the way villains look at heroes in movies, like he wants to hurt him just because he can." "Piper, that's a very serious thing to say." "I know. That's why I'm saying it." I should have listened. I should have called Trevor right then and demanded he bring Colby home. But I didn't want to be the crazy ex-wife. I didn't want to give Trevor ammunition for his next custody petition. So I let my baby go, telling myself it was just 2 days. Just 2 days. Sunday at 6 p.m. came and went. No Trevor. No Colby. I stood at the front door with Colby's favorite mac and cheese cooling on the stove, checking my phone every 30 seconds. Trevor was habitually late, but never more than an hour. It was his way of maintaining control, making me wait, proving he didn't have to follow my schedule. By 6:30, I called him. Straight to voicemail. I texted, "Where are you? Colby has school tomorrow." No response. He's probably just running late from the arcade, I told myself, pacing the living room while Piper sat on the couch, still reading her Egypt book but not turning any pages. At 7 p.m., I called again. Voicemail. I called Jenna's phone. Voicemail. My hands were starting to shake. "Mom, maybe they had car trouble," Piper suggested, but her voice was thin, worried. "You're probably right, sweetie." I grabbed my keys. "But let's go check on them." The drive to Trevor's house normally took 20 minutes. I made it in 12. His BMW was in the driveway right next to Ryan's rusty pickup truck. The porch light was on and I could see movement through the living room curtains. I pounded on the door hard enough to hurt my hand. "Trevor, open up! Where's Colby?" Jenna answered, and I immediately knew something was wrong. Her mascara was streaking down her face in black rivers, and she kept pulling at the sleeves of her sweater like she was trying to hide something. "Where's my son?" "We don't know. Trevor came home without him. He said Colby was with you." My blood turned to ice. The world tilted sideways. "What do you mean with me? I haven't seen him since Friday." Trevor appeared behind her, and what scared me most was how calm he looked. His hair was perfectly styled, his clothes clean and pressed. He looked like he was about to show a house, not like a father with a missing child. "Melinda, what did you do?" "What did I do?" "Where is Colby?" "You took him, didn't you? You've been threatening to move to Colorado. You finally snapped and took him." "Are you insane? I never threatened to move to Colorado. Where is my son, Trevor?" Ryan emerged from the kitchen, beer in hand, swaying slightly. Maybe the kid ran off. He was being a real brat yesterday. I lunged at him, but Trevor grabbed my arm. "Don't touch me," I screamed, yanking away. "I'm calling the police right now." "Good," Trevor said smoothly. "They need to know what you've done." I called 911 from their driveway, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hit the numbers. "My son is missing. My ex-husband was supposed to return him at 6, and now he's saying he doesn't have him." Within 15 minutes, their house was swarming with police. 2 squad cars, then 3, then a detective's unmarked sedan. The neighbors came out to watch, whispering behind their hands. Trevor stood on his porch like he was holding court, gesturing dramatically as he talked to Detective Weston, a heavy-set man with kind eyes who listened to Trevor's every word like it was gospel. "She's been unstable since the divorce," Trevor told him, loud enough for me to hear from where another officer was questioning me. "She's obsessed with having full custody. She's threatened to take him before. Check her phone. She probably has him hidden at her mother's house in Denver." "That's insane," I screamed across the yard. "I haven't talked to my mother in 3 years. She doesn't even know Colby exists." Trevor pulled out his phone, showing the detective something. "Look, here are texts where she says she wishes she never had to share custody. Here's one where she says she'd do anything to keep the kids away from me." Those texts were from 2 years ago, during the worst of our custody battle, taken completely out of context. But context doesn't matter when a child is missing and someone needs to be blamed. Detective Weston walked over to me, his expression neutral but his eyes suspicious. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to come to the station." "Are you arresting me?" "Not at this time. We just need to ask you some questions." "You should be searching for my son, not questioning me. Check their house, check the backyard, check Ryan's truck." "We'll conduct a thorough investigation, ma'am. Right now, we need to establish a timeline." Piper was clinging to my leg, silent tears streaming down her face. "Mom, where's Colby?" Trevor called out from his porch, his voice dripping with fake concern. "See officers. She's traumatizing my daughter with this stunt. Piper shouldn't have to watch her mother lie like this." That's when I knew. The way he said it, the practiced delivery, the subtle smirk he tried to hide. Trevor knew exactly where Colby was, and he was going to make sure I took the fall for it. Monday morning, my face was on every local news channel. Mother suspected in custody kidnapping of 6-year-old boy. They used my driver's license photo, the one where I looked tired and unsmiling because I'd taken it right after a 12-hour shift. Next to it, they showed Trevor's professional real estate headshot, all white teeth and confidence. The contrast told a story before anyone even spoke. I sat in the interrogation room for 12 hours straight. The fluorescent lights hummed above me, giving everything a sickly green tint. Detective Weston went through every detail of my life like he was performing surgery. Where was I? Friday night? Saturday? Sunday? Did anyone see me? Could anyone verify my whereabouts? "I was home with my daughter," I repeated for the 10th time. "We watched movies, made cookies, did homework. Piper can tell you." "An 8-year-old isn't a reliable alibi, Mrs. Morrison." "It's Ms. Chapman. I went back to my maiden name." He shuffled his papers. Your ex-husband says you've been struggling financially, behind on rent, because he hasn't paid child support in 2 months. He says you were planning to move to Colorado without telling him. That's a complete lie. I've never even been to Colorado. Meanwhile, they searched everything. My house, where they dumped out drawers and cut open couch cushions. My car, where they luminoled for blood and found nothing but old juice boxes and goldfish crackers. My sister Rachel's apartment, terrifying her roommates. My work locker at the hospital. Even my mother's house in Denver, despite me explaining we hadn't spoken since she chose not to attend my wedding because Trevor wasn't Catholic. Trevor, on the other hand, was treated like a grieving father. He posted on Facebook, "Please pray for my son Colby's safe return. If anyone has seen him, please contact the police immediately. We just want him home." Within hours, it had 300 shares and hundreds of comments calling me a monster, saying I should rot in jail, that mothers who kidnap children are the worst kind of evil. Rachel brought Piper to see me at the station Monday afternoon. They wouldn't let her in the interrogation room, but I could see her through the window, holding her tablet tight against her chest like a shield. She looked so small in the police station's harsh lighting. "Take care of her," I mouthed to Rachel. That's when Piper did something extraordinary. She walked right up to the officer at the desk and said in her clearest voice, "I need to speak to Detective Weston. I have evidence about my brother." The officer looked amused. "Sweetie, the detective is busy right now." "Then he'll want to unbusy himself," Piper said, pulling out the business card Weston had given me. "Tell him I have text messages from my dad about Colby. He has 5 minutes before I call the news station that's parked outside." Where did my 8-year-old learn to negotiate like that? The officer's amusement faded. He made the call. Detective Weston came out looking irritated until Piper held up her tablet. "My dad gave me this so we could text when I'm at Mom's house. He doesn't know it saves deleted messages in the cloud. He's not very good with technology." The detective's expression shifted. "Your parents should be present before we talk." "My mom is already here," being falsely accused. "My dad is the one you should be questioning. Do you want to see the messages, or should I show them to Channel 9 instead?" Rachel stepped forward. "I'm her aunt and temporary guardian. I consent to her sharing whatever she needs to share." They brought Piper into a comfortable room with softer chairs and a box of toys in the corner that she ignored. She opened her tablet with the focus of a prosecutor, navigating to the messaging app with practiced ease. "Dad set this up last year. He said it was our special way to talk, but really he wanted to check if Mom was dating anyone or talking about him. He'd ask me questions about Mom's friends, where we went, who we saw. I stopped telling him stuff, but I kept the tablet because I like playing games on it." She pulled up the cloud storage, something Trevor clearly didn't know existed. "When you delete messages on the tablet, they stay here for 30 days. Dad doesn't know that because he never reads the manual for anything. Mom always said that would get him in trouble someday." Detective Weston leaned forward. "Piper, this is very important. Can you show me any messages from this weekend?" "Saturday night, 11:47 p.m., she said, her small finger scrolling with purpose. "That's when everything started." She found the thread between Trevor and Ryan, deleted from Trevor's phone, but preserved in digital amber on her tablet. The messages that would change everything, the ones Trevor thought were gone forever, destroyed like he'd destroyed my son. "There," she said simply. "That's what they did to my brother." The interrogation room erupted into controlled chaos. Detective Weston's face went through a series of expressions as he read the messages on Piper's tablet. Disbelief, then understanding, then urgent determination. He immediately called for backup and a forensics team, his voice sharp over the radio. "We need all units to Miller's Creek, north entrance. Possible 187. Bring the K9 unit." I was released from custody so fast they barely finished the paperwork. An officer drove me to the observation room where I could see Trevor being brought in through one entrance, while Ryan was escorted through another. They'd separated them immediately, standard procedure to prevent them from coordinating their stories. Through the one-way glass, I watched Piper sit across from her father. Detective Weston had asked if she wanted to wait outside, but she'd refused. "He needs to know that I know," she'd said with a steadiness that broke my heart. Trevor still looked perfectly composed, his realtor smile fixed in place. "Piper, sweetheart, tell them this is all a misunderstanding. You know Daddy would never hurt Colby." Piper looked at him with those sharp green eyes she'd inherited from him, but with none of his deception. "Dad, should I tell them where you and Uncle Ryan buried him? You sent me the location by accident." The smile finally cracked. Trevor's face drained of all color, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. "I don't know what you're talking about, baby. Someone must have hacked my phone." "You can't hack stupidity, Dad," Piper said quietly. "You sent me a GPS pin at 2:13 a.m. Sunday morning. Then you wrote, 'Wrong chat,' and tried to play it off as a work location. But you don't work on Sundays at 2 a.m., and you especially don't work at Miller's Creek." Trevor's lawyer, a sharp-dressed man named Mitchell who'd arrived within minutes of Trevor's arrest, lunged for the tablet. "This is inadmissible. She's a minor. You can't question her without both parents present." "Her mother is present," Detective Weston said calmly, nodding toward where I stood behind the glass. "And she's not being questioned. She volunteered this information." That's when Ryan broke. From the other room, we could hear him shouting, "It was an accident! I swear to God it was an accident! The kid wouldn't stop crying about wanting his mom. Trevor told me to shut him up. I just pushed him a little, but he fell wrong. Hit his head on the coffee table. There was so much blood. Trevor said we couldn't call 911 because he'd lose custody forever. He said we had to make it look like Melinda took him." Trevor jumped up from his chair. "He's lying. Don't listen to him. He's drunk. He's always drunk." But Ryan kept going, the words pouring out like a dam had burst. "Trevor made the plan. Said if we buried the body and blamed Melinda, he'd get full custody of Piper and wouldn't have to pay child support anymore. Said the life insurance would pay off his debts. He'd taken out a policy on both kids without telling Melinda. $100,000 each. I collapsed against the window. Life insurance. My baby was worth $100,000 dead to the man who was supposed to protect him." Jenna appeared in the doorway, Detective Weston's partner beside her. She was shaking, clutching a bloody T-shirt in a plastic bag. "I found this in the washing machine," she whispered. "It's Ryan's shirt from Saturday night. Trevor told me not to touch it, but I couldn't stand knowing anymore." She looked at Trevor through the glass. "I heard everything Saturday night. Colby was crying because Ryan wouldn't let him call his mom. Ryan grabbed him and shook him hard. Colby pulled away and ran, but Ryan chased him. There was this terrible crack when Colby hit the table. Trevor didn't call 911. He didn't even check if Colby was still breathing. He just started planning how to frame Melinda." The search team found my baby at 3:47 a.m. Monday morning, exactly where the GPS pin indicated, in a shallow grave near the creek bed. The medical examiner's preliminary report confirmed what we already knew. Blunt force trauma to the head, consistent with being pushed into a sharp corner. But there were also bruises on his small arms, defensive wounds that suggested he'd tried to protect himself. My 6-year-old son had fought back against a grown man who outweighed him by 200 pounds. Trevor was charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy, and concealing a death. Ryan was charged with second-degree murder and conspiracy. They were both denied bail. As they led Trevor out in handcuffs, he looked at Piper one more time. "Daddy's sorry, baby," he said. Piper stared back, unflinching. "No, you're not. You're just sorry you got caught." Trevor got life without parole. The jury deliberated for only 2 hours, and most of that was filling out paperwork. Ryan got 30 years with the possibility of parole after 20. He cried when they read the verdict. Trevor didn't even blink. He sat there in his expensive suit, the one he'd worn to fool custody evaluators, and stared straight ahead like this was just another business meeting that hadn't gone his way. Jenna testified against both of them. She told the jury how Trevor had rehearsed his story with Ryan, making them repeat it until it sounded natural. How he'd planted those old text messages on his phone to show the police. How he'd actually smiled when he heard I'd been arrested, saying, "Perfect, now we can get this over with." She's in therapy now, living with her parents in Iowa, trying to understand how she married a monster. But justice doesn't bring back a 6-year-old boy who just wanted to play dinosaurs with his dad. The funeral was small. I couldn't bear a big service with people who'd believed Trevor's lies filling the pews. Just family, real family, the ones who'd never doubted me. We buried Colby in his Iron Man suit, the one he'd worn last Halloween. I placed his favorite dinosaur, a stuffed T-Rex named Chomper, in his arms. Piper wrote him a letter that she wouldn't let anyone read, folding it carefully and tucking it beside him. "So he has mail in heaven," she explained. Piper doesn't speak much anymore. She goes to therapy twice a week with Dr. Martinez, who specializes in childhood trauma. Some days are better than others. She still carries that tablet everywhere, though the messages have been permanently deleted after the trial. She keeps asking if she could have saved him if she'd shown me the messages sooner. "You didn't know what they meant, baby," I tell her every night when she can't sleep. "You saved Mommy. You got justice for Colby. You're the bravest person I know." "Brave people save lives," she always replies. "I just saved texts." I've left nursing. I couldn't go back to the pediatric ward, couldn't see other people's 6-year-olds without breaking down. Now I work with custody evaluation teams, teaching them to look for the signs everyone missed. The controlling behavior disguised as caring. The brother who was always just crashing for a while. The new wife who was too scared to speak up. The child who tries to tell you something's wrong but doesn't have the words. I show them Piper's journal entry from the week before Colby died. "Uncle Ryan is mean when Daddy's not looking. Colby doesn't want to go anymore. Why don't grown-ups listen?" Why didn't we listen? Every Halloween, when I see little boys in dinosaur costumes running door to door, their plastic pumpkins swinging with excitement, I remember Colby's last words to me. "Bye, Mom. Dad says we're getting pizza." They never got pizza. Instead, my ex-husband and his brother decided my son's life was worth less than child support payments and a $100,000 insurance policy. The location pin is still saved in evidence somewhere, coordinates to where they thought they'd buried their secret forever. Those numbers, meant to help them move the body if needed, became the beacon that led us to the truth. It showed the world that sometimes the real monster isn't the obsessed, unstable mother the media wants to paint. Sometimes it's the father who coaches Little League and posts "best dad ever" on social media while planning the unthinkable. Piper and I moved to Oregon, as far from Kansas City as we could get without leaving the continent. We have a small apartment near the ocean. She's learning to surf, something she never could have done in Missouri. She says the waves make her feel powerful, like she can control something massive just by understanding how it moves. We're in therapy together now, learning how to be a family of 2 when we were supposed to be 3. Dr. Martinez says we're making progress, that trauma like this takes years to process. Some days, I believe her. Other days, I stand in Colby's room, which I've kept exactly as it was, and wonder if I'll ever breathe normally again. Piper made one friend at her new school, a quiet girl named Luna, who doesn't ask questions about why we moved here or where her brother is. They read together at lunch, 2 8-year-olds carrying weights too heavy for their small shoulders. Last week, Piper looked at me over dinner and said, "Mom, I want to be a detective when I grow up, or maybe a prosecutor, someone who makes sure the truth comes out." "You already did that, baby. You already made sure the truth came out." Then I want to do it again, for other kids like Colby. That's my daughter, 8 years old and already planning to save the world, one text message at a time. If this story touched you or opened your eyes to the signs of danger hiding in plain sight, please like this video and share it with others who need to hear it. Leave a comment below about your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories that matter. Together, we can make sure no child's voice goes unheard.